All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into something, well, a little different.
Different, for sure.
Yeah, a little outside the box.
Outside the box is a good way to put it.
Sexual energy mastery. Ever heard of it?
Oh, yeah. Definitely fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it might sound a little out there, but trust me, this deep dive is all about getting into some really thought-provoking ideas about, like personal power and how it all ties into like societal influence even.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, how much control do we really have? That kind of thing.
Exactly. And the source material we're looking at today, this book called Master Your Life,
Okay, yeah.
it presents this whole argument, right, that by getting a handle on like controlling your sexual energy,
Mm-hmm.
that's like the key to, unlocking this whole other level of control over your life, your destiny, all that.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's almost like, think of it like, you know how in Eastern philosophies they talk about chi or prana,
Oh, yeah.
that vital life force energy?
Right, right.
It's kind of like that, but with this laser focus on sexual energy. So I'm really curious to get your take on this. What are some of the core arguments here? Where does this book even start?
Well, the author kind of jumps right in, paints this picture of society where we're constantly being pushed toward like instant gratification,
Okay.
always giving in to our desires, seeking pleasure, buying stuff, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, I see. So like we're just kind of like programmed to indulge.
Well, the book doesn't necessarily frame it as a bad thing, more like,
System.
yeah, system, exactly. They call it the world asleep.
World asleep, huh? Okay, so it's not just about individuals making choices. It's like this deliberate design almost.
Right, and then it gets even more pointed when it talks about this thing called the conspiracy of lust.
Conspiracy of less. Okay, now you got my attention.
Yeah, so the book's argument is that things like the media, advertising, all that, it's all designed to keep us in this cycle, this never-ending cycle of craving and consuming.
Especially when it comes to lust.
Like, exactly. They highlight how lust is, constantly glorified in movies, TV shows, everywhere, right? And meanwhile, discipline, self-control, those things are almost always portrayed as like undesirable, even kind of lame.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's like you're not supposed to like resist.
Yeah,
You're supposed to just go with it.
right. You're supposed to just buy that product, watch that show, indulge in that, whatever it is.
So if we're all caught up in this world asleep, this conspiracy of lust, how do we break free? What's the way out?
Well, that's where this idea of sexual energy mastery comes in.
Okay.
The book presents these 10 laws of sexual energy mastery, and it's basically, it's a framework, a roadmap for taking control of this energy and using it for personal growth.
All right, so let's get into these laws. I'm particularly intrigued by Law 1. Energy retained is power multiplied.
Yeah, that's a big one.
What's the core idea there?
Well, Law 1 is all about recognizing that sexual energy is basically life force energy, right? It's the energy behind our creativity, our ambition, our drive.
So every time we,
Release it.
yeah, we're kind of like letting some of that power go.
Exactly. And on the flip side, if we learn to retain that energy, to choose when and how to channel it, it builds, it multiplies.
Okay, now I'm starting to see how this connects to the whole personal power thing, right? It's like we're building this reservoir of energy that we can then tap into for other areas of our lives.
Precisely. And then that leads us perfectly into Law 3, which is all about transmutation.
Transmutation. Okay, I like the sound of that.
It's like alchemy. Taking that raw sexual energy and consciously channeling it into other pursuits, creative projects, goals, personal development, you name it.
So instead of being like driven by our desires,
Yeah.
we're learning to like harness them, use them as fuel for something greater.
Yeah, flipping the script, exactly.
Are there like specific examples of how to do this? What does the book say about, actually putting transmutation into practice?
Well, the book doesn't get into like step-by-step instructions, but it talks a lot about activities like meditation, exercise, creative expression, things like that.
Okay, yeah.
Focusing on your goals.
So like, let's say you're feeling that surge of energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just, going with the flow, you could channel it into writing that song you've been working on.
Yeah.
Or coming up with new ideas for your business, or even just, hitting the gym.
Exactly. It's all about being intentional with that energy.
I can see how that would be really empowering to have that level of like control over your impulses and choices.
Absolutely.
But I know the book also talks about the potential downsides of, indulging too freely.
Yeah, there's definitely two sides to this coin.
And that's where Law 4 comes in, right?
You got it, law 4, the flesh is the enemy of the spirit.
Ooh, that's a heavy one.
Yeah, so this law gets into the idea that, if we're constantly giving in to those desires,
Mm-hmm.
it can actually lead to this disconnect from our spiritual selves.
Interesting. So it's not about judging anyone's choices. It's more about like acknowledging that overindulgence can kind of pull us away from, you know, things like mindfulness, self-awareness, that deeper connection.
Exactly. It can be a distraction, a detour on the path to, connecting with something bigger than ourselves.
So it seems like it's all about finding that balance, right?
Balance, yeah.
Honoring our desires, but also using that energy to fuel a more, I don't know, like a more intentional life.
Absolutely. It's about choice, awareness, and using that energy to create the life you want.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
You too.
So if we had to like sum up this whole deep dive,
Yeah.
what would you say is the biggest takeaway for our listener?
I'd say it's recognizing that sexual energy is way more than just a biological urge. It's a powerful force that can be incredibly empowering if we understand it, if we learn to harness it.
It's not just about giving in or resisting. It's about making conscious choices, right? Wow, this deep dive has really made me rethink my whole perspective on this, you know? It makes you
Yeah.
wonder, what could we achieve if we could really tap into that power, if we could consciously direct this energy?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it?
It really is something to ponder, for sure.
Yeah, definitely food for thought.
Lots of food for thought.
Absolute.
All right, well, on that note, we'll leave you to, digest all this.
Enjoy the feast of ideas.
Exactly. Until next time.
See you then.